What's going on, guys? Zers here. And in today's video, I'm gonna be answering a couple of questions someone by the name of Sweetheart QT messaged me. So she sent me 4 questions, 2 questions on 2 different topics, and she said I could make a video response to her about the questions. So I decided that's a good idea, and also she runs her own channel here on YouTube where she does many different book reviews and movie reviews and other different very interesting topics, so you guys can check her out when you're done here. So she asked me 2 questions on the topics of feminism and MGTOW. So let's get started. Let's see. Alright, her first question regarding feminism is, why do they demonize romance so much? I've seen this constantly, and it's almost like they treat women who fall in love as weak and not independent. Oh, by the way, after she asked these questions, she has a rationalization as to why she asked the question and her thoughts on the topic. So she continues to say, and women who don't have a romantic partner as someone to admire, I think romance has often been linked to a man helping out a woman, and for some reason, they see that as weakness. However, I think the argument about independence is ridiculous because everybody relies on somebody / something else to survive. I don't get it. Well, the answer as to why they demonize romance so much is actually pretty simple. And it is because when you're in a romantic relationship, the very nature of it all opens the door up for you to get hurt. And when you're in a relationship with someone, you have given them power over you, and they give you power over them, emotional power that you have that you can use to hurt them. Especially if they open up and they trust you, you can really do some mental damage if you abuse that, and that's the whole trust part of the relationship. And so, to a feminist who is obsessed with power, and if you notice, a lot of feminists are really obsessed with, political, social, they're really obsessed with power and control over men. And so, when you're in a romantic relationship with a man, you have opened the door up for you to be hurt, and you have given him power over you. And feminists, like I said, they don't want that, and that's why they demonize romance so much. Among other things, other than the fact that they just don't like men, a lot of feminists just outright hate men, unfortunately, that's how it is. Of course, not all feminists, really are terrible people, but there is a disdain that a lot of feminists really do have for men. Now, some of them are indeed just kind of misguided, don't really know what they're talking about, and they really more think that feminism is synonymous with egalitarianism, and they're wrong there, and they just wear the label. And then you have the other feminists who are, it's a female supremacy movement, and they're obsessed with the idea of power. Now, to answer your second question, why does everything need to be 50%? Despite the obvious percentage being equal, it does seem like feminists want women to go into more male-dominated fields, all for the sake of women being more represented. But why does it need to be that way? Why do we need to have equal amounts of the two genders? It doesn't do anything in my humble opinion, because you're always going to have groups who are better in certain areas, than others. Why force people for the sake of equality? Well, honestly, that's really more a question you have to ask feminists. But to answer your question, I think what I think it is I think a lot of feminists really take the word equal to the extreme, and they don't really understand, that you can be different and equal at the same time, because a lot of them are so ideologically ingrained that they think men and women are the same, when, they're just not, so for lots of different reasons why men and women we're different from each other. And because they view men and women as the same, they think that, men and women can do the same thing, or they'll have the same interest. And so they think that everything should be 50-50 because we're just, we're just human beings, we're just people, we don't have different interests. Everything should be equal. But they don't actually believe everything should be equal, because they certainly don't advocate for 50% of male teachers, and they certainly don't advocate for 50% of female garbage collectors, right? So they're really only primarily focused on 50-50 and power positions, right? Which is completely ridiculous when you think about senators or House of Representatives in Congress, considering the fact that a representative is supposed to represent their state, not their gender or their sex. So it really doesn't matter. Like, if you have any understanding of, how our democratic republic works, you would know that it doesn't matter if you have more women or more men who are senators, because they're supposed to vote based off the voting population. That's the whole point. That's how our republic works, and they're just grotesquely ignorant on that fact. At least I think they are, because if they do know that and they still want 50% of women, then they're just wasting their time, because it doesn't make a difference. Even if you had 100% of all the senators, if most of the voting majority is women making the votes, it's still women making most of the decisions. So yeah, I don't know. To answer your question, why it has to be equal, I think it's because they think men and women are completely the same. There's no difference between us, when that's just not true. And I completely agree with what you said. Now, her last two questions revolve around MGTOW, or men going their own way. See what she has to say. Do you think that men should be held accountable for the women they choose in the same way as a woman should be held accountable for the men they choose? I've seen so many MGTOW videos where they say women are inherently programmed to use men for money and are parasites. That women can't love men, and that we as women are evil and manipulative towards men. That all we want is to divorce and hurt men. That women can't love men, and that we as women are evil. Therefore, women don't have any real value to men, and that men should distance themselves from women. I think that not all MGTOWs say this, but I've been seeing a growing number thinking that all their problems and society's problems are a result of women. When they say a lot of stories I hear, they seem to bring up the same notion of the woman pursuing the bad boy. A lot of men that have shared stories seem to have chosen the mean, spoiled, narcissistic girl and choose to bend over backwards for them, because usually these women are more attractive, instead of standing up for themselves and saying that they deserve better. Again, like the feminists who pursue the bad boys. The MGTOW solution to me seems to just ignore women or use them for sex, instead of trying to find a woman who would respect them, because I don't think that women are good/worthy. Again, like all the feminists who think men are evil, I think that there are some patterns among these groups. So I agree with you there. So her original question is, do you think men should be held accountable for the women they choose the same way women should be? To answer your question, yes, I do. Well, it depends. I think, when you first start talking to someone, my dad always says, when you really date someone, you're really dating their representative. You're not really dating who that person really is until a while down the road, when they finally decide to reveal themselves to you. So to a certain extent, you can't really be held completely accountable if the person is manipulative. It's not completely your fault if you never knew that the person was a jerk. You never knew that the girl was a bitch. So for men and women, when they get into these bad relationships, if the person started off nice and they changed over time, that's not really their fault. It's their problem, but it's not really their fault. They didn't really do anything wrong in that situation. They just didn't know. So you can't really blame them for that. On the other hand, for the girls who know that these guys are drug dealers, or they know that this guy is a player, they know that this guy has a lot of female attention, they know all this, and they still pick him and then get mad when he cheats on them, she should be held accountable. Same way if a guy, if he knows that this girl is spoiled, he knows she's stuck up, he knows that she has a whole bunch of other guys trying to have sex with her, and he still decides to go after her and he hurts her, and I do think he should be held accountable there. So it depends. Like if you know and you decide you're going to try to change the person, you can't really be upset. If you don't know, then it's not really your fault. So there's that. And then final question is MGTOW going to create further distance between genders and more fighting? I feel that when we blame each other for our problems, society's problems, instead of trying to understand one another and come off the table, it creates a distance that can't be rekindled. I think that understanding one another leads to new insights and can lead to better self-improvement. And I completely agree with you on that one. I do think that men and women should be together and should work together, right? And so, but to answer your question, is really more, your question is really more asking of the future, and not to be snarky, but I'm not a prophet. I don't know if MGTOW is going to do that, but I know it can do that, right? Because what I have seen, of course, isn't everybody. Unfortunately, with every conversation that revolves around MGTOW, you do have to preface it by saying this isn't everybody, because there really are lots of different people there, you know. And so some of the MGTOWs that I have seen a lot more often are really angry and vitriolic people who kind of say what you've been saying. You know, you have other MGTOWs who are more indifferent towards women, and they don't care, you know. And I say they don't care. They're just, I'm gonna focus on myself, make myself better, and live my own life. And you have other MGTOWs who say they don't care about other people's opinions, but they very clearly care, considering the fact that they're commenting on it and they're really upset at the fact that people have a dissenting opinion of them. And they're really angry people, and they're really sore, you know, and that's not going to be helpful with anything. So it definitely can, you know, if MGTOW, even if, I don't know, because even if MGTOW did become mainstream, technically speaking, it wouldn't hurt in the short term, because a lot of girls, unfortunately, don't view a lot of men to be worthy of them anyway. So in the short term, the girls just be like, well, whatever, I don't care. But in the long term, when the girls want to settle down, that's when they're going to be fucked. That's when a lot of problems are going to start happening. So in the short term, not really. And in all actuality, you know, if you really look at demographics and look at the channels here on YouTube, MGTOWs aren't really that big yet. I mean, they're growing a lot, but it's still not really big, you know, especially not here on YouTube. So yeah, you won't see much of its effects just yet, because again, like I said, most young ladies nowadays, they go for the top 20% anyway. Most of the MGTOWs are in the 80% of men who actually at one point really did like women, you know. A lot of these MGTOWs actually started off as really nice guys, and guys who really did love women, who really did want to be with women, and through bad relationships and being rejected, they became that way. It's kind of the same with a lot. It's kind of like what you said earlier about how you know, there are some similarities between some MGTOWs and some feminists. Not in the sense that MGTOW is like a political system, but in the sense that both feminists and both some MGTOWs have a disdain for each other. And I think you're right. I think it is possible, definitely, that it can create more distance between the two. It can just create a generation of men and women who just hate each other, unfortunately. And the people who suffer the most are the ones who didn't do anything wrong. And that's one gigantic problem as a whole that happens in the world. There's too many people who do nothing wrong suffer for the actions of those who have. You know, so yeah, final answer, it can. Is it going to? I don't know. I can't say it will. Yeah, because actually, if you really listen, you know, I've heard from several MGTOWs, they don't actually have solutions. They don't care, and they want to opt out. There is no fixing the problem, or they want to say they want to fight female nature, but they're very myopic when they talk about female nature anyway. So that's another topic unto itself. So hopefully I answered your questions, and anyone else who stopped by, I hope you enjoyed today's video. So if you did, man, go ahead and click the like button. Go ahead and click that subscribe button. Comment box below, and as always, have a great day. I will see you cool cats soon. Adios.